We are live on YouTube, sir, and webinar is also started. You can continue.
I think we should start right now.
Unmute it. Okay.
It's well said that all life forms, including humans, they are different. But when it comes to worldly life, because every person, every life form has different situations, different experiences in their lives. But the Indian ancient scriptures like Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and saints and sages of India and the world, they says, everyone in this world, in the universe, including the universe, they are identical, they are similar, and they call it as pure consciousness. Yes, this is what we talk, this is what we learn, and this is what we understand in Yogananda Center for Theology in Shunli University. Namaskar, I'm Dr. Prerna Bhardwaj, coordinator of Yogananda Center for Theology in Shunli University. YCT was established on 5th January 2021. This day is very important for all of us, not only for Shillinians, but for every individual who is there in India and others too, because this coincides with the birth anniversary of God-realized personality who came on this earth to spread the message of love and self-realization. Yes, I'm talking about Shri Shri Paramahansa Yogananda ji, whose teachings are related with self-realization. So we, in the center, we focused on publications, on research patterns, patents, and recently the good news is we have filed one patent too from YCT. We have different type of activities in the center. Some of them we have already done with the activities, and some are pipelined in the annual calendar of YCT. We recently have established a club which is called as Yogananda Center for Theology Divine Club. This is especially for all the young minds. We have the second focus of YCT is every student which will go out from the university will learn two aspects, the knowledge of books and the spirituality. So this, we all want collaborations, and we are getting collaborations from all over the world, the biggest scientists who are there working with philosophy and religion and spirituality. So today we have organized the second webinar of Yogananda Center for Theology entitled The Science of Spirituality. Among us are very renowned guest speaker, Mr. Sunil. I welcome you, sir. He is entrepreneur and researcher of Indian heritage and management consultant. Also, we have another guest speaker who will be soon joining us, Professor Makrand. He is director of Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Shimla. We have Chancellor of Shunli University and patron of Yogananda Center for Theology, Professor P.K. Khosla. We have Vice Chancellor, Shunli University, Professor Atul Khosla, the President and Founder, Shunli University and SIL, Mrs. Saroj Khosla, Chairman of Yogananda Center for Theology, Mr. Vivek Atre, all the dignitaries, all the Dean Directors, faculty members, and yes, the very important, all the enthusiastic young mind of Shoolini. Yes, I'm talking about the students. So I took this immense pleasure to welcome you all on the second webinar organized by Yogananda Center for Theology. So now, to grace the occasion, we can start with, I request Vice Chancellor, Professor Atul Khosla, to kindly present welcome note. Over to you, sir.
There are moments in everyone's life, there are moments in history when spirituality plays an even more important role than it normally does. I think we're living in those type of times today. I'm coming out of a meeting of 20 senior professors of Shoolini. And out of those 20 professors, at least 4 of them have had some very close relative of theirs deceased. I think that's a very, very serious issue. And we need spirituality at these times. We need support at this time when we can support each other and we can seek support from spirituality. Thank you very much, Mr. Sunil, for being here today. In advance, I also welcome Professor Paranjpe for this very valuable discussion. Mr. Vivek Atre, welcome to this discussion, and Professor Khosla. And of course, Prerna, Lalit, and others. And of course, all the students and teachers who are in this discussion today. The science of spirituality. I remember as a son of a scientist, which my father is, I used to laugh at the thought of spirituality. I used to laugh at the thought of religion, especially when I was in my early teens. And I think most students or most teens would have the same behavior or would have the same thinking. As you grow in life, you understand the value of spirituality. There's a value of bringing science into the spiritual thinking. And I think who could be better than talking about this than Sunil Sharon today? He is not just a person with deep spiritual roots, but also has been on the other side, been a management consultant. We'll also have Professor Paranjpe talk to us, who is the director of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, who brings in both philosophy and the concept of science together and spirituality together into the discussion. So if you can bring science into spirituality, or start believing that there is a science to spirituality, I think the world will be a way better place. And hopefully what we are suffering today will not happen anymore. So with these words, I once again welcome all of you, and I'll hand it back to you, Dr. Prerna Bhardwaj.
Thank you so much, sir, for this welcome note. Thank you. Next, may I request Chancellor and Patron of Yogananda Center for Theology, Professor P.K. Khosla, to kindly present welcome note to the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Prerna. The doctor of our friend from Canada, who will be as an entrepreneur management expert and also a disciple of Yogananda. Our second speaker will be joining us soon. Vivek Atre, the Vice Chancellor of the University, Lalit, Prerna, other teachers and students. Now the number has swelled to 79. Well, now the issue is, I think differently than what Atul has said, or most of the people think. Can we use science to explain spirituality? I would say spirituality itself is a science. This science differs from the material science. In material science, you have broken the molecules into atoms, to subatoms, to protomic, genomics, and whatever you think, the smallest level of the science. But all these, what do they do? What do these sciences do? They are constituting the physical matter. Yes, human body is a physical matter. It feeds us, it gives us energy. We act with the energy from the physical things. But there is something else which regulates the energy, which tells us whether to walk or to run or to be slow. What is that energy? That is to be understood through spirituality. It controls everything of our life. There is in between the mind. We can be the good person, we can be a bad person, we can be a greedy person, we can be a jealous person. Who is doing that? Is it the matter, the physical food that which we are taking? No, there is something else. There has to be something, and what we call it as the soul. There is some energy that controls us. Once it goes out of our body, switches off everything. The same body which you love, which you are keeping as the dear and near, and you want to dispose it off at the earliest. So let us talk about that thing. There is one monk very dear to us, Swami Krishnananda ji. One day he was in the university. Incidentally, He belongs to a science family because Raman, who's a Nobel laureate, he was his father's uncle, and Chandrasekhar, who's the second in the line uh, amongst the Indian science Nobel laureates, and he's his uncle. Obviously, said Dr. Khosla, why Indians are not getting Nobel Prizes? You will never get, because you people are doing the same repeated thing what the Westerners have done. If somebody is to get in India a Nobel Prize, then its research should be, what is this soul? What is it made up of? Is it made of only the same periodical elements? And it is not visible. And if somebody can answer this question, why one? There can be thousands of, I would say, the novels coming year after year from this, I would say, the institutions. So that gives us the thought to think that definitely the soul science is different from the physical science. Physical science, we can use physical science as a tool to study that, but it is not going to be the, I would say, the contemporary of that. For example, when I was being brought up, I was 11 or 12 years old. My younger brother used to tell about his past birth, and that's he continued from 3 to 5 years of age. I had also gone to metric. I was 15 years old. We thought of going to his village, which he was telling that he's living in a. He used to live in a village, didn't know 9 kilometers from Ludhiana, and his father name is Dilipa. In the villagers they call like that, and we found it is correct. That boy recognized it. The house was long. We asked the neighbors. They said his grandmother is here. Mr. Dilipa's mother is here. Oh, because Dilipa has gone to Nairobi, and he recognized, sat in her lap. So is there? We may not believe it because many things we have to believe it because have we seen how the sun is moving around its solar system? It has its own solar system. We have not seen it, but still we accepted the scientists have said it. You have no right to criticize things if you say, oh, we don't believe it. So those answers have to come. There is soul energy which is directing our life, and we need to understand that as a science. It is a beginning. Spirituality people will say good behavior, good thinking, good life, honest. Spirituality is beyond these things. Okay, these things are, I would say, the ingredients, the beginning points for a startup. So today's webinar, firstly, the Theology Center, I think this is the brainchild of Vivek Atre, and we discussed it. Prerna became the supporting system, and three of us came and discussed with the Vice Chancellor to create a Center of Theology in Children's University. And we would wish to, it is a long journey, the longest journey, I would say. There was one Dr. Moody, as an American, never believed in soul or other things. One of his doctor friend told him, yeah, I was in charge of a resort where the people used to die. It was an old house resort. And ultimately, people were dying. I used to see something is coming out there from their body. And I could think, no, it is a replica of their own thing. It is not the same thing. It's not made of the same, the physical molecule. So ultimately, Dr. Moody then started thinking on these lines. He read one news that a person had died and after some time, and he was telling that he had gone to the heaven, and then there it was decided that we don't want this man, he should go back. So then he wrote a book. He collected all such instances from the literature, from the newspaper cuttings, from the people's recording, and ultimately came to the point, soul is there. Soul, when leaves the body, the energy starts from the feet to the leg, going up, comes to the dark channel, and then there is a brightening light. It hovers over its own body. The body wants to speak, but the people cannot listen to him. So his interest is lost, then he proceeds. So when you see American, that he has collected thousands of people, the statement, it is not the one person. So, my dear members, the students and participants, let us not criticize it. Let us start thinking, yes, this is also possible. This is new mirror of life. So with this background, today's seminar, there are two speakers. One is going to speak on the seriousness of research. What are the research criteria would be required? Because research thinking has to be the same, whether you are going for the spiritual science or you are going for the physical sciences. And the other professor is speaking on the science of dreams, dreams in importance of dreams in life. All these things are going to be very close to the spirituality, because these sciences and the adoption of these things are going to in future unravel the or revel the hypotheses of which are differentiating between, I would say, the science and the soul. Thank you very much. We hope to listen to the speakers with this background. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Hearing and listening from you is always a blessing for everyone. So I think we all should give us virtual applause. Thank you. So it's our honor to have among us in our webinar the very honorable guest speaker, Mr. Sunil Sharon, who is an entrepreneur and a management consultant. He has delivered multiple business transformation programs to Fortune 1000 companies. So in cost-driven organization, he focuses on designing dharmic management practices. So he has been a yoga practitioner and researcher of Indian heritage since early 1990s. His area of interest includes method of education, yogic, Indian mind science and management approaches. Also, he makes a special efforts to conduct research in Sanskrit. He has contributed to many organizations like Yoga Seva, Shri Shri University, Infinity Foundation. So we are very honored, sir, that you are here with us. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prerna. Thank you very much for having me, Khoslaji, Atulji, Vivekji. Really appreciate this opportunity. So as I was thinking about what could I add value as Yogananda Center's team is getting ready to, I guess, operationalize its activities, I thought I'll try to, I guess, compile my learnings from different experiences which are relevant to your context. So in terms of the context that's relevant to you, just to give you a little background, I guess the spiritual adhyatmic side comes from Gita and Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Those are two scriptures that I have paid a little bit closer attention to. And obviously SRFYS's teachings since, I guess, my teenage years. And then in terms of research and building a research team, I guess two specific experiences I have is, one is with the Infinity Foundation. I have known Rajiv ji for about 10 years, who's the head of Infinity Foundation, and I've seen the struggles of building a, I guess, a discourse which is not mainstream about intercivilization studies, connecting it to dharmic traditions. And then I have few friends in Shri Shri University who are followers of Art of Living. I have seen their challenges of building teams which have a little bit of dharmic management practices. So last 3 to 4 years, I have worked with them. So it's a little bit blend of, you can say, adhyatmic side, a little bit of research side. I guess you can say one interesting flavor I can bring is East and West sort of flavors, how these interactions happen. So with this sort of a amalgamation of my experiences, I'll offer a few thoughts for your consideration, and hopefully you'll find them relevant. So the first thing I would say is this whole undertaking that we are talking about here in Yogananda Center is very, very humbling, challenging. and most serious as well. So if we think of some of the, I guess, the biggest researchers, I think of Patanjali as a scholar or researcher who put out Patanjali Yoga Sutra. For thousands of years, how much it has impacted everybody. Think of the scholar researcher Vedvyas. We have Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata. So think of the content they have produced. So when I think of researchers or scholars, I think of them as people who generate knowledge. So if we are in knowledge generating work, it needs to be taken with utmost, I guess, sincerity, humility, and our value is by what results we produce. So it is obviously a very, very serious undertaking. Now, what's the criteria that it's a good research? In Patanjali Yoga Sutra, we have, I guess, three traditional criteria of what's a good research, or what's the proof that is the right knowledge. Otherwise, anybody can say anything. They say everybody's got opinions, but I joke around all the time. When the budget comes every year, every barber shop and every rickshaw driver is talking about what the finance minister should do. So same way, when it comes to spirituality and these general life topics, everybody has opinions. So in Yoga Sutra, they have a clear criteria called Pratyaksh, Anuman, and Agam. In Hindi, we have a saying also, Pratyaksh ko praman ki kya avashyakta hai. So one is Pratyaksh, your direct perception. Anuman is inference from others' experiences. And Shastra. Where all these three intersect, that's when we can say, yeah, it is validated by all three. So I can say it's the true knowledge. We also, other three words they use for the same thing is Apt Praman, Shastra Praman, and Atma Praman. So I guess that's one thing I want to offer. When we are doing research, that's a good one criteria from our scriptures that we want to know it's the right thing. So I'll offer maybe three thoughts for today's conversation, which I say are probably three good traits or ingredients of a good researcher. And you can club it to think of as a researcher or a scholar, or you can think of it as the management people of researcher, how we actively keep track of our research. And I'll provide a little bit of color to those three thoughts. So the three thoughts are courage, critical thinking, and depth of your content. So let me provide a couple of thoughts about each one of them. So first one I mentioned is courage. So courage, the first thought that comes to my mind when I think of courage is loyalty. Now, loyalty to what? Loyalty to whoever you have learned from, let us say your guru, or the loyalty to your heritage or ideology that you belong to. So now, loyalty does not mean it's like political partisan kind of a thing. If our ideology is like what Koslaji mentioned was so precious, if our ideology is that it is about the energy, I prefer the word Chetana or Pran, if that is same in all the human beings and it is universal, then we need to stay true to it. We shouldn't sell out because of small temptations here and there or small pressures here and there. So one thing is that. Now, loyalty also means when you are a researcher, let us say you are an obedient disciple of a guru and you want to be loyal. At the same time, this path of yogic path is the only one where you can question your teacher or guru. So while being obedient, how do you question? That requires a huge courage. So that's one point. So typically more and more, one of my experiences, more and more I see thinkers, they somehow start diluting that courage piece or objectivity piece. Researcher, you can also use the word objectivity. So we need to have our mind clear. Yes, at some point I am going to be okay confronting whatever is the mainstream or whoever is teaching, because every individual is unique. So one thing is that. Now, some of the, I guess, the reasons or prerequisites to be properly loyal is, first thing is we need to have some basic core understanding of the concepts, which are essential concepts. What is dharma? What is this consciousness? What is the anatomy? What is the metaphysics? What is the I guess, the cosmology of our ideology. What are some of the core concepts? If you don't know the basics, then obviously you can't be loyal to anything. I mean, you need to know the basics, what you're being loyal to. Once you have the clarity of that, then you need to have commitment on what is my role in this big cosmos, so that you can be loyal to your swadharma, your yajna, as opposed to uh, just getting scattering your efforts. Another, I guess, prerequisites is the idea of character. That means in Hindi, I always say, na phislenge, na darenge. So you got to be careful about, I'm not going to sway because of some temptations or some pressures. And then one practical thing is the sponsorship. I mean, do you have the financial independence to survive yourself? So these are some of the practical considerations, hopefully, and that gives you the idea of being a little bit courageous in what we do. Otherwise, we will have trouble producing without this kind of a mindset to produce, I guess, a serious, genuine knowledge, which a scholar or researcher is expected to produce. So now the second point is critical thinking. Now, critical thinking, I was talking to SRF Nun, actually, Sister Ranjana. That stuck to me. The truth is never like a small box. It is multi-level, multi-dimensional. So when you're trying to understand a multi-level, multi-dimensional thing, and we understand some things, we don't understand certain things. So first thing is we need to be curious, and desire that is sort of unsatiable in a way. You're always, always, always learning as a scholar or researcher, because it's you basically self-realize when you understand everything. So until then, we are all learning. So having this, it is wrong to get satisfied so quickly with knowledge, I guess, where we are always going to be learning. I'll give you my small example. I was wowed when I was a teenager in Gita, like I think it's in 8th Adhyay, 10th Shlok, Priyan Kale Mansa Chalena. So in which it says a person leaves the body by their own choice. I said, man, that's like Superman. I mean, who wouldn't want to be that? As a teenager, that's the most awesome thing, that you leave your body by your own choice. Otherwise, most of the people you see, they're miserable and they don't want to die. And here's a person who can check out by their own choice. So I said, that is so cool. Then as obviously those, when you're younger, those Superman kind of things wow you. When I read Autobiography Yogi many, many years ago, it was full of all kinds of miracles. I said, either this monkey's lying or I got to figure out what's going on. This is like, it doesn't compute in a normal scientific thinking kind of a person. And more you dig, it's you resolve many answers and you get more questions at the same time. And as like one of the recent things I've been thinking is, I wish I had studied biology or genetics and stuff. As I read Gita and Patanjali Yoga Sutra, like I'll give you a small example. In first chapter itself, when the conversation happens about Vishadiyog, Arjun Vishadiyog, I think shloks are first chapter, I guess 40, 41, 42, 43 kind of thing. The concept of how women need to be taken care of, how your kul needs to be taken care of, how jati needs to be taken care of. And I said, how this person is relating all to genetics. The same thing happens again in chapter 16. Same thing happens in chapter 4. Same thing happens in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Like in fourth chapter, I guess the second one. So it's like amazing how if somebody is a scholar, these are deep concepts of how you connect this jati, feminism, and this and that, all these topics that you see in mainstream, they have a completely different lens, which is all socio-political these days. All these topics. If somebody wants to do research from the point of scientific research to what Khoslaji was saying, connecting it to that prana or chaitana and stuff, and how the systems need to be built, I mean, that could be, that's like world-changing kind of practical topics if somebody wants to do a focus on that stuff. But that requires critical thinking, multi-level, multi-dimensional. And it also requires you to not just analyze everything with the mind, because at some point this research is going to go beyond logic and it goes to intuition. And that doesn't get developed unless you're living that kind of a lifestyle, which allows that intuition. One of the challenges that saints put in front of all of us is that people who are not living a sattvic proper life, they are basically like a muddy water. So you can't see your own mind properly unless you clean up that mud and calm that water. So if our own mind is not like that, then whatever research we are going to do, that itself is going to be inferior. So that's where I guess a whole lot of things get misinterpreted. I come across so many examples. Just a few days ago, I was talking to Vivekji and we talked about Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, and I said Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam is a great simple example of but the world is a family, but Mahabharata also happened in the same family. We never talk about the war. We just say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam and we move on. We better understand Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. That basically means it's bandhutva, it's atmiyata, it is prem. That's where the idea of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam is coming. Not just family. I mean, most of the families, everybody, not everybody, but most of the people have some friction. It's not necessarily a pleasant situation. So critical thinking, so again, I hope you can connect the idea of courage and critical thinking. But eventually, when it's a person or it's a team, it needs to come down to what's the scope of your work? What is the focus of your work? So that's where the content depth comes. Whoever talks these kind of things, I mean, they think they know everything about every topic on planet. That's just not possible. I mean, I see so many more people want to be famous, world famous, and whatever, but they don't even know the field they want to be in famous. Who in front of who do they want to be famous? So it's important to know our positioning, our own Swadharma Yagya, where do I fit in this whole game? So then another big problem here in critical thinking is language. Bharatiya languages have some, I guess their parent-child relations, or they're all family, so translation is much easier. As you go outside of the languages which are non-Indian, then things get lost in translation too much. For example, mind and manas is not the same thing. So many people don't know the difference between karma, kartavya, karya, and kam. Ahankar, ghamand, abhiman, dambh, different things. We all label it under ego and we move on. So if somebody is a scholar or researcher, they need to be able to differentiate between those words and then produce proper knowledge. So I guess those are the three things I want to leave the new scholars or the research team with: courage, critical thinking, and your depth of your knowledge. And eventually, comes down to execution excellence. Can we make it happen? Yoga hai karma sukashalam. Definition of yoga is karma mein kushalta ka naam yoga. So karma is not a linear equation, cause and effect direct. It's very, I guess, calculus. It's not simple arithmetic. Who knows when, how these calculation of all this stuff happens. So I guess that's pretty much it. Those are some of the key thoughts I want to leave you with. I guess the idea of courage, we need to be careful about the language. We have grown up in colonized mindset for last 5-6 generations. We really need to be careful how we are West wowed. What are the good things we can get from there? What are the things we need to watch out? What are the things we need to unlearn if somebody is a genuine scholar? Logic has its own limitations. How do I calm myself so that I have more intuitive abilities? And then if we are following SRF, Yogananda Center is more tied to you, then we need to see what are the boundaries. Are we going to extend or expand Guruji's teachings, or what is the scope of up to which you're going to go? Are we going to contaminate it? Are we going to build on it? What are the rules to expand that knowledge? So all these questions are, I guess, more of these are questions, but I just hope that we produce genuine knowledge as opposed to simply recycling, as Koslaji was saying. It's easy to recycle things, but to generate it, it's a serious undertaking, and it humbles me. And I guess building one scholar itself, knowledge is time consuming. I hope we have some good scholars and we leverage each other's competence. No one person knows everything. With that, I'll close my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Again, the virtual claps on the behalf of all the audience. I took this responsibility. Thank you. Thank you so much for your wonderful lecture. You talked about so many wonderful things, and I definitely believe that you correlated science with spirituality. Wonderful, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, proceeding further with the webinar, we have among us the second honorable guest speaker of the webinar, Professor Markant. I welcome you, sir, on the behalf of Yogananda Center for Theology-Shoolini University. We are very excited. Everyone is very excited to hear from you. So before that, I share Professor Markant is currently the director in Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. He was graduated at St. Stephen College, Delhi, and the University of Illinois, where he got his master's and PhD in English. He has been professor of English at Jawaharlal Nehru University for over 20 of his 40 years as university teacher. He is author of some 20 and editor of over 24 books. He, in addition to hundreds of academic papers and popular articles, his latest books include Swami Vivekananda Hinduism and India's Road of Modernity. So Professor Markant is currently a columnist in Open Magazine, Gulf News, The News, Indian Express, and The Print. And he has inspired a lot of people through his talks. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You joined us in our webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Makaran Paranjpe, may I also welcome you on behalf of the Yogananda Center for Theology. It's a pleasure to have you here, Professor Paranjpe, and look forward to hearing you now. Thank you, Mr. Atre, Mr. Khosla, Mr. Sunil Sharon ji, and everybody else. Of course, I must tell you the way to pronounce my name is Makarand, which is a Sanskrit word which means the nectar in the flower or honey. Anyhow, it's not Markand. Markandeya was a great rishi. And this is about language, what Sunilji was saying, critical thinking, courage, and deep cognition, in fact, require linguistic skills which we really don't have today in India. In ancient India, people studied for 6-7 years just to master Vyakaran, because to understand the Vedas, you needed to know language. And unfortunately now, I teach literature. I have been teaching for a long time and in supposedly one of India's best universities. But if you ask people in humanities and social studies to write 2 pages of prose, which are cogent, coherent, well substantiated, you find that it's very difficult. People don't know how to arrange their thoughts or to make even a simple proposition, let alone develop an argument. In fact, I just got a report of one of my PhD students, and one of the examiners said that, look, this whole thesis is nothing but description and narration. Where is the argument? What is the thesis trying to prove? So, and after working for 4, 5, 6 years, this is the situation. Anyhow, I must say that I was, quite surprised and also moved to hear that there's a Yogananda Center of Theology. Now, this is something unprecedented. I don't know about any other such center in India. I have difficulties with the word theology. I don't believe it's an Indic or Sanatani or a co-Sanatani discipline. We don't do theology. If you want to use terminology from the West, then we are interested in orthopraxy, because हमारे यहाँ I did a little bit of homework. I looked at the inauguration of your center when Swami Smarananandaji spoke, and he said, I hope the center also talks about experience. So हमारे यहाँ अनुभव के बगैर विचार नहीं हो सकता और आचार तो दूर की बात है. तो वेदों में ऋषियों का अनुभव है जो एक संध्या भाषा में, मतलब वो क्या है पूरी तरह हम उसको समझ नहीं पाते. मैं कुछ हिंदी में भी बोल रहा हूँ क्योंकि मुझे विश्वास है कि लोग हिंदी बहुत आसानी से भी समझ पाएंगे. अंग्रेजी में भी मैं बोलूँगा, वो बात नहीं है. लेकिन तो अनुभव आधारित जो ज्ञान है उसको हम थियोलॉजी नहीं कहते. ये जो लॉजी है, फिलॉलॉजी, साइकोलॉजी, ये लोगोस से आता है. And when you say theology, which it means systematic knowledge about God, तो हमारे यहाँ we say, अनुभव से ही, परमात्मा की पहचान हो सकती है. सिर्फ अक्षर ज्ञान से तो कुछ नहीं हो पाएगा. ब्रह्मविद ब्रह्मैव भवति ऐसे कहा जाता है. खैर उसमें हम बाद में आएंगे. But I really want to tell you, I congratulate you on this center. The name of Yogananda, has earned you goodwill from people all over the world, because many of us started our spiritual journey by reading the Autobiography of a Yogi. I was a very young man when I read that book. I read that book, and then I also read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And my journey started like that. This morning also I was reading the book, and how when Yoganandaji's mother passed away, he was distraught, and his mother had left a message for him with a spiritual amulet. And when he got the amulet, he remembered his past lives. And then, of course, he met Sri Yukteswarji and the whole lineage, Mahavtar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashaya, all that opened up to him. But the thing, you might have asked, why did I title my talk, Life's Dream today? I did it because of a poem Paramahamsa Yogananda wrote about Mount Washington. I had the good fortune of going to the headquarters of the Self-Realization Fellowship in Mount Washington, close to Los Angeles. It's a beautiful place, which was a hotel actually, which Paramahamsa Yogananda bought, I think, in the 1920s for about $45,000. And I met, some very great people there. I went to the room, beautifully preserved. His last breakfast has also been preserved. Of course, the fruits are wax, so what he ate on the day, his staff, his paduka, khadao, all those things are there in that room in Mount Washington. So I'll come back to Mount Washington in this poem, Life's Dream. I'll tell you why I chose that, at the end of my presentation. And then I was fortunate to go to the Lake Shrine, the only place outside of India where the ashes of Mahatma Gandhi have been preserved in an ancient sarcophagus from China, more than maybe 1500 years old. And there's a windmill-shaped church there. There's a houseboat in which Yoganandaji himself stayed. The way he acquired the property is absolutely miraculous, straight out of Autobiography of a Yogi, where the person got a dream who owned the place that someone is going to call you and ask for this property. Anyhow, please read these almost miraculous events. I was happy to go there, meditated there. I also went to Ranchi and went to the spot where in 1917, Paramahamsa Yogananda had the vision that he would go to America. All his American followers appeared to him like in a IMAX, panorama. In a screen, he saw the vision. And that place has been commemorated today. There's a lychee tree also. And there's also a room that's been beautifully preserved. I was invited by the Judicial Academy of Jharkhand actually to lecture on law and literature. But I think the real purpose of going there was, these great masters, they wanted me to go to that room. And you see, we were innocent. We didn't know. My host said, chalo jaake dekhte hain. And the time was up. It was 5 o'clock, they closed. This was 2-3 years ago. When I went there, the lady in charge She said, you know, we were waiting for you. I said, kya matlab? She said, ye jagah to band hai, lekin we were waiting for you. Ab hum aapke liye khol dete hain. It was 5:05 or something like that. And there's a small Shiva temple. I offered water there. So, you know, I didn't know anything about your program. I don't know anything about Shoolini University. I confess my ignorance. I don't know about Mr. Khosla. I don't know anything. But when they said Yogananda Center for Theology, I said, Dekhiye, I cannot refuse. So that is my little connection. Now, I had only 20 minutes. I'm coming close to the end of my time. Let me read you this little poem, at least one paragraph, and then conclude. He says at the end, the last stanza of this poem is, here one path shall merge with all other paths. Here the love of earthly freedom's paradise, America, shall blend forever with spiritual freedom's paradise, India. Here church in deepest friendliness shall all other churches meet. Here the temple and mosque shall greet. Here the long divorced matter laws will wed again in peace the spirit laws. Here all minds will learn that true art of living life and the way to start straight to the one great place where all must meet at last. Jehovah, this is the land of solace where my life's dream and truth reappears. So, of course, he was a great unifier. And in this unity, he combines America and India. Long ago, Walt Whitman did that in a beautiful poem called Passage to India, which later became the title of E.M. Forster's book. To all my young friends, please read this poem, Passage to India. If you call me again, I'll give you a lecture on it, by Walt Whitman, okay? So the idea is to combine the peoples of the world, combine the races, and that is the path of evolution, not division. Again, he says mosque and temple, not sectarianism. And then he says something very interesting, and this is where science and spirituality, the dream that Swami Vivekananda had, my book is at the back here, where I talk about it, the double spiral that Swamiji worked on. Nikola Tesla came to see him in New York, in Manhattan, and talked about, Swamiji talked about Akash and Prana, which is matter and energy, okay? And look at what Paramahamsa Yogananda says. He says, here the long divorced matter laws, long divorced matter, will wed again in peace the spirit laws. So I want to conclude. What I want to say is that we are looking for a new unified epistemology. Long ago, science was only called natural philosophy. All the disciplines split up after the European Enlightenment. And now we know that the time of convergence is reappearing, because no subject has the knowledge to address the complex problems of humanity. We need something different. And as Mr. Sharonji said, we need a new idiom, we need a new language, because our old language, our old idioms are not sufficient to express the complexity that is emerging. And humanity is at a crisis, and only some kind of combination of science and spirit. We don't know how. The Dalai Lama ji also has a Mind Matter Institute. So many efforts have been going on for nearly 100 years to discover that link. And this was Paramahamsa Yogananda's life's dream, as he says. I want to end now because I apologize for joining late. We had a death, in the institute, not in the institute, but one of our employees' father passed away in Uttarakhand. He had COVID. Friends, were in the middle of this second surge, which some call a tsunami. And we all have to be careful. We all have to, mask ourselves, maintain social distance, observe every possible precaution. But please remember that somehow life and death are a mystery. Every religion wants to solve the mystery of death. I again want to come back to Paramahamsa Yogananda. this evening we had a wonderful lecture on Himalayan Buddhism, its spiritual significance and its geostrategic importance. But in our condolence meeting, I remembered the story of the Buddha. I didn't talk about it, there was no time, where the old lady is so distraught, her young son has died. And the Buddha, she sees the Buddha and she believes that a Mahatma has come, so he may bring her dead child back to life. And the Buddha says, yes, I'll do it. But go to the village and find me one mustard seed from any house which has not known death. And the old woman goes from house to house to house. Then she comes back to the Buddha and says, oh, great one, every home has known death. And when his guru passed away, Paramahamsa Yogananda was so distraught. His guru had left him in the Kumbh Mela, and then he found out that Sri Yukteswar had passed away. And then, you read the autobiography. I don't want to spoil the story. He actually appears, if you read the autobiography of a yogi, and he says, look, normally I do pranam, but today I'm going to embrace you because I want to know if you're in flesh and blood, if you're real. And here's the story, which is, in a way, it's funny. So I'm, of course, narrating it differently. Please read it yourself. So, he asks his guru, like, okay, what are you up to these days? Like young people say, what's up? What's up? So he says, well, I'm in another realm, he says. This is an astral realm. The matter, human body, the body is not human, but whatever. These bodies are different. The world is different, blah, blah. And then Yogananda says, but sir, what are you doing? And so his guru says, the same. On earth also, I was trying to help people progress spiritually. In that realm also, I'm trying to do the same thing. So friends, what I'm trying to say to you is that life and death, they are a mystery. This is an eternal journey. And there's the paradox of science and spirituality, which is, on the one hand, we are out of time. We don't know. Even young people are being claimed by this awful disease about which we don't know anything. And at the same time, ये जो जीवन है, जीवन तो छोड़ दीजिए, चेतना की निरंतरता है. We are always around, we've always been around, and all young people should have that confidence that time is unlimited, but the time to evolve, the time to mature, the time to find the truth, Atma Vidya, Svabodh, uska samay abhi hai. There's no, you can't say first I'll get married, first I'll get a job, then I'll find myself. No. You have to start the process now. And if the Yogananda Center for Theology gives you the environment, I heard Mr. Khosla's remarks. He said, look, I want to give you a space, no propaganda, come here, sit quietly. So please take that up, maybe post-COVID. I don't know if the university is functioning in an online mode or in a real-time mode, but go to this place, sit quietly, connect with your deeper self, and I think that you will find the experience deeply meaningful, deeply rewarding, and it will also lead you to success in your worldly endeavors. With those words, I wish my young friends well. My pranams to my older friends here, and thank you all so much for your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Virtual applause from every student, from every person who is attending this lecture. I'm definitely 110% sure everyone has learned a lot from your talk. Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. And while I must tell everyone, कि जब sir की mail, I received the mail and I got the title and topic, that's Life Dream. Sir, I wrote there on your mail that, sir, you have broadened up my smile when I saw that topic. And really, sir, the talk was wonderful. And autobiography of a yogi, puri flash चेहरे के सामने आ गई, sir, as you were discussing the real facts. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So now may I request the chairperson, Mr. Vivek Atre of Yogananda Center for Theology, to give thanks and closing remarks. Over to you, Vivek, sir.
Thank you very much. I know that everybody is busy. I'll only take 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sunil Sharon ji, for joining us all the way from Canada. I know it's 8 a.m. and now probably 9 a.m., so it's better time for you. And Professor Makaran Paranjpe, who I've got the ailment from Prerna, actually, sir. My apologies. Professor Paranjpe is joining us from Shimla, which of course has the same time schedule as us. So luckily enough. For your information, Professor Paranjpe, Sunil ji and I have also visited the Lake Shrine and the Mother Center at Mount Washington at least twice. He may have visited about 10 times, I don't know. Professor Khosla has also probably visited these wonderful locations. We are all deeply into the philosophy of Yogananda ji. We know the autobiography like the back of our hands, similar to you. We have read it many a time, and I read it every day. All of us have read it. And it's really remarkable what you said. I'll talk about your talk first and then come to Sunilji. What you said about life being a dream and his poem. And then he also talks about the path that leads to thee. There's a poem which says the path that leads to thee, which is totally remarkable. And I would request you to read it as well. There are other publications which we have at Shoolini, which have been brought out by the Yogananda Center and the Yogoda Satsang Society and the Self-Realization Fellowship, which we shall send across to you, some of them, which you would like to read. And let me also say on your talk that we need to hear more from you. And since we had only 20 minutes for each speaker today, perhaps on another occasion when you can visit Shoolini, and I'm going to request Professor Atul Khosla, the Vice Chancellor, to also add a few words, that you could visit and maybe experience for yourself that the campus is almost as beautiful as your campus in Shimla, which we have seen. It's quite a beautiful campus. But let me first briefly touch upon Sunilji's talk and then request Atul. Sunilji, you too, I mean, the three hypotheses that you connected so beautifully together. My only surprise is at the fact that in 20 minutes, you as well as Professor Paranjpe were able to highlight what we wanted you or hoped that you would highlight. And that is the synergy between science and spirituality, and what Professor P.K. Khosla also said at the beginning. And you being like Atul, me, and I won't count Professor Khosla in that league, having been through the grind, so to say, and been through the industrial grind, the consulting grind, the government grind, and whatever Professor Khosla has mainly been through the government and the academic grind. So we know for a fact that spirituality is the only answer. And when you speak of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you give, and you didn't mention the Eightfold Path, but you did mention the main components of what he talked about. Thank you so much for that and for sharing your wishes, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you, both speakers. You really enlightened us. We will record your thoughts in print as well and publish them in a document which will come out at the end of the year. Over to you, Professor Atul Khosla, for your closing remarks.
Thank you, Vivek. And, today I feel like a pygmy in front of such amazing and illustrious speakers. So I'm not going to speak much, but say that this was so enlightening. Both Sunil and Makarand, I hope I got the pronunciation right, were absolutely enlightening. And this was one of the best series that I've been through, because it was not just scientific. I think it was touching on the scientific temper, but it was also pushing us towards the spiritual and the philosophical side of life. So thank you once again a lot, and hopefully we can see you in flesh and invite you at Shoolini. I think it'll be easier for Professor Paranjpe, so we'll meet you. Either we'll come over, sir, or we'll definitely have you at Shoolini. But Sunil, sir, would love to have you too, and hopefully we will see you at Shoolini, but definitely we'll also try to, visit California and be at Guruji's place, right? I think that's a dream. So once again, thank you, students. Thank you, faculty and others who've been in this discussion. I promise you that it's a small step on our part to bring in spirituality and philosophy and a new wave of thinking into typically a scientific humanity that we have at Shoolini. And hopefully the School of Theology under your leadership, Vivek, can prosper and one day hopefully can rub shoulders with the center that Professor Pranjpe runs, which I know is very big and very deep and very rich in its thinking. So thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. We will be coming soon with new webinars, with new speakers. All the best.